Okay, so we have got our uh, model fit. Now you see, let us look at modification indices, and why I am saying that looking at modification indices at this time will not be very fruitful also. Look at what it is suggesting. E11 should go very with latent factor creative behavior, and the highest that you will get is if you go very E16 with lead latent factor. So all these are actually not making any theoretical sense, right? So what you should try to do it always, and this is the philosophy I would recommend, is work with your individual constructs, ensure that their measurement models are fine, and then when you will bring them, even though the chi-square will not will fail, you will get all your other fit indices to be showing very good fit. So go ahead and report that result. Don't bother about the other the chi-square. So this is the uh, uh, Mahalanobis distance. Here also there is this case 287, which was also coming out in procedural justice. Okay, and the difference is about 4 point something. So it is okay, not a very big change, so we can retain it. Normality assessment, again, the multivariate normality is showing is violated. Items, some are fine, some are not good in terms of kurtosis, some of them are okay. So we will actually, uh, anyways, we would do bootstrapping in order to assess the normality, work with non-normal data. What I want to demonstrate here is we have got all these loadings now, and these are the standardized loadings. So we will now work with this, and we will go to our Excel sheet, and we will now compute the convergent and discriminant validity of our constructs. Now the three constructs that we have got are leadership, procedural justice, and creative behavior, right? So these are the three constructs with which we have to work. So what we will do is we will work and compute the CR and AVE for these constructs. Now I have already demonstrated how to work. So when you are going to work with the second order factor, use only the loadings of the second order factor to the first order factor. Okay, so you can take these three loadings of lead on EMP on lead, task orientation on lead, and LEX on lead. These are the three loadings. Okay, we can go to that Excel file that we were looking at, and we will copy them here. So our CR becomes 0.874 and AV is 0.699. So we will write it here, 0.874 and 0.699. This is the AVE for the second order factor leadership, right? 0.874 and 0.699. Then we go to procedural justice. We have 4 items for procedural justice. So we will copy these 4 loadings, and we will go to this 4 indicator sheet, and we will paste it here. So our CR and AVE is 0.879 and 0.646. So we will write it here. This is our AVE and CR for PJ. And then we have the 6 items for MOBS for creative behavior. So we will copy these, go to the 6 indicator sheet, and we will paste it here. So this is our CR and AV. right? So we have now got the convergent, the composite reliability and the average variance extracted for our three constructs. Now we can see that the composite reliability for all the three constructs is greater than 0.70, which is showing that the items are good. AV for two of these is greater than zero point 0.5, but for creative behavior, it is less than zero point 0.4, which we were also, I told you when I looked at the loadings, the moment I saw the loadings, I told you that this construct may have the loadings are not very high, because in order to achieve an AV of greater than zero point 0.5, the loadings should be greater than zero point 0.7. 0.7. If you have loadings greater than zero point 0.7, only then you will get an AV of zero point 0.5 or more. But here we are seeing that out of 6 items, 5 of them have loadings less than zero point 0.7, and that is why the AV is coming out to be less than zero point 0.5. So I told you in our earlier discussion also that it is okay if your AV is coming out to be less than zero point 0.5. If your CR is giving you a good result, you should go ahead and report that for your convergent validity. AV is more critical when you have to prove the discriminant validity condition, right? So we will copy this table. So we'll check this again now. We will compute the discriminant validity condition. Okay, so we'll just copy it here and okay, so this is our table that we want to work for discriminant validity. Now we will have lead instead of EMP, task orientation and LEX. We will have lead, we will have PJ, and we will have creative behavior. We will have lead again, PJ, and creative behavior. What is the AV for lead? It is 0.699. What is the AV for PJ? It is 0.646. And what is the AV for creative behavior? It is this. I will delete all of this. Right? So this is our AV. On the diagonal, we have the AV. So we'll write it again. So the diagonal values represent average variance extracted. The green values represent this, and the blue values represent the square of the interfactor correlation. So what is the correlation between leadership and PJ? Where will we get this result? We will get this in the output. Just below the loadings, the standardized loadings, you will see covariances and then you will see correlations. So what is the correlation between leadership and creative behavior? It is 0.345. So I'm going to write it as 0.345. What is the correlation between leadership and procedural justice? It is 0.536. So this is 0.536. And then what is the correlation between procedural justice and creative behavior? It is 0.292. So 0.29. So these are the interfactor correlations. Now, what would be the square of this? Very simple. We will just compute the square of these correlations. Okay, so this becomes the square of our correlations. Okay, and let me just make it 2 decimal places. Right, so this is our discriminant validity table that we are going to work with. Now, how will we check the discriminant validity? The conditions will be AVE of lead is greater than R square of lead with PJ and R square of lead with CB. Then you will have AVE of PJ should be greater than R square of lead with PJ and R square of PJ with CB. Then you have AV of CB greater than lead with CB and PJ with CB, right? So let us check whether these conditions pass or fail. So the first condition, AVE of lead 0.70 is greater than R square of lead with PJ, that is 0.29, and it should be greater than R square of lead with CB, which is 0.12. So this condition passes for us. The second condition, AVE of PJ 0.65 should be R square greater than R square lead with PJ, which is 0.29, and it should be greater than R square of PJ with CB, which is 0.09. So this condition also passes. The third is AVE of CB should be greater than R square lead with CB, which is 0.12, and R square PJ with CB. This condition also passes. Thus, what we can conclude from this analysis is that the three constructs are discriminant from each other. There's not much of an overlap. They are not similar constructs. They are three different constructs representing three different concepts, and therefore testing the path, what would be the relationship between these three constructs is going to make sense, right? So this analysis shows that from our measurement model, what have we concluded? That these three are distinct constructs, and therefore we should go ahead and test the paths, the regressions between these three constructs.